Hey, this is Fling here with DFS Army, and it's just your Week 11 cash lineup review. All right, so over at Fantasy Labs, this is about where the cash line was. We have 118, like 119, 120, depending on the contest that you're in. This is a $25 massive double up single entry. But yeah, the cash line here, 118 points. And you can see these are a lot of cash plays that we certainly were on at DFS Army. You'll see my cheat sheet when I get to a minute here in a minute. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Devin A. Sean. These definitely were guys that I was on in really good spots. Christian McCaffrey definitely disappointed. It's not exactly the floor that you need for cash, not for an 8,300 player. You would have liked to have seen, 18 to 20. Not going to win your tournament, but would definitely provide more of a floor to make up for some other spots in your cash lineup that definitely underperformed. And Devin H. On was great, 20 points. I had him as a core for me. Jacoby Myers definitely wanted to have seen a little bit more from a 5,600 player. About 10 to 12 points would have been certainly better. Same as Cedric Tillman. Judy and Elijah Moore got all the production. Really thought he was kind of underpriced relative to the role that we had seen in the couple games that he had played with Deshaun Watson being benched, essentially. Well, not benched, he tore his Achilles, but going to Jameis Winston. And wasn't the case in this game, but you could see why he was highly owned, 60%, just because it was a good spot going against a New Orleans team without Lattimore because they traded him, and it was a great spot. But Elijah Moore and Judy and Njoku, they got all the production here. Kayshon Boutte, this was another play underpriced relative to his role. He had a 0 early on. Luckily, he was able to get going later on, but kind of the same thing. Demario Douglas got the touchdown, and Knox was one of the best values at tight end and really did well here. The one play in this lineup that I kind of think probably wasn't the best cash play, but I think the process was obviously right going against Jacksonville was David Montgomery. It's just kind of high variance between, him and Gibbs sharing the backfield, and they're both pretty expensive, and he wasn't getting a ton of ownership, but, kind of just play the matchup, play the best plays, and this certainly was a good spot. And paid up at defense, don't typically like to do that, but he clearly, Boba 10 Fett clearly hit the cash line here. You'll kind of see same thing here. Some good plays. I wouldn't have considered Drake May cash viable, only 1% ownership. And typically you want guys that have some type of ownership and, are in good spots, because if they go off, you want to have them. You don't want to go against them, and you have the 1% owned guy that doesn't do well. And, the guy who's 10 to 15% owned in cash games is going off. You're only trying to beat half the field. So you typically want to absorb a good amount of chalk in your cash lineup and not have a lot of low-owned plays like a pay-up defense. Drake May here, for example, 1% ownership. So, Calvin Ridley in a tough matchup against Minnesota, that type of thing. But, at least this lineup was able to hit the cash line. Now, we will go to my sheet. It was my actual lineup. I had a lot of the same plays that you saw in, a couple of the lineups that hit the cash line. The biggest miss for me is Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. And when you go with a 3 running back build here with like a Kamara, Devin A. Sean, and Christian McCaffrey, you're really planning on Kamara, Achane, and Christian McCaffrey carrying this lineup. So, we're trying to get 60-plus points at minimum between these 3 players, knowing that any of these 2 could score 30-plus and you can have an easy path to get there. Christian McCaffrey failed in a good spot. I don't think the blocking is good for San Francisco right now, as we've seen in the past. And Christian McCaffrey just isn't breaking tackles like we've seen in the past. And maybe it's going to take a while for him to get his legs underneath him. Didn't have a preseason. missed the first 9 games. So we'll see. But definitely failed there. Was not nearly enough. And then Kamara. And, whenever Taysom Hill has 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns, Kamara's going to have a bad day. And that's exactly what happened. Taysom Hill broke the slate. Kamara failed. And Achon was a great play. Jacoby Myers was probably fine. And so was Tillman. But you needed more from your 2 out of your 3 running backs. You needed more from Kamara. You needed more from Christian McCaffrey. And this Davis Allen was so tilting because he actually ran way more routes than Parkinson. He had taken over in snaps, routes, and targets. And yet Parkinson got the 1 target out of the 2, and it was in the end zone for a touchdown. So he got the 0, but he was 2,500. You could have absorbed this 0 if you had bigger days from McCaffrey and Kamara, but that is chalk that failed. And when chalk like Kamara and McCaffrey fail, you're not going to hit the cash line most weeks, at least the way I play cash games. We're going to be profitable on the season, but we are going to have the weeks when the chalk just completely fails, and that's exactly what happened. Now, if we go to my cheat sheet, and by the way, if you guys like these reviews, let me know. Hit that like button, comment, let me know how cash went for you this past week. But, we were on I had identified some good plays. And in fact, if I had stuck to my sheet a little bit more, I think it would have been a profitable week for me in cash. But Brock Purdy and Nix were the guys that I had identified. Nix was really the guy that you wanted. I believe he had like 29 points. Had Christian McCaffrey as a core, Devin Achon as a core. Really worked out for Achon, 20 points. And, Breece Hall did great as well. I believe he had like 25 points. But Kyren and Kamara, really disappointed. Christian as well. So it was really just the running backs that were hard to nail down. But obviously, if you played like Breece and Devin Achon, you would have easily hit the cash lineup. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown smashed. Puka smashed. Pickens did well. Shakir did well. Sutton did well for his price. Tillman and Booty, they didn't kill you. You could definitely absorb them. And then it had Knox as one of the top pay downs in Davis Allen. So if you went with Knox, the more proven guy, there were paths to hitting the cash line this week. I kind of just depends on who you played. If you hand built from the cheat sheet, you probably did pretty well. If you played the optimal this past week, and you got the 3 stud running backs that didn't go well for you with chalk failing. But we'll go back to the drawing board and try to get back on the profitable side for next week. So that's going to wrap it up. We'll see y'all next time. Sheesh. Yeah, big time.